Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the unknown? What if there was a place, hidden from human eyes, where reality itself bends and time unravels? A place where every step could be your last. In this thrilling tale, a former agent is pulled back into the world of secrets and danger, forced to step through a mysterious portal into an alien world, where nothing is as it seems. Follow him on a journey that will push the limits of survival, sanity, and the very fabric of reality itself. Will he escape this twisted dimension, or will he become just another lost soul in a world that never lets go? Brace yourself for a sci-fi adventure like no other. Stay tuned as the story unfolds. The day I received the call from Director Wells, I hadn't set foot in a military facility in years. I had left that world behind, retired from the life I'd spent unraveling the secrets of technology too dangerous to exist. I had seen things, classified experiments, alien technologies, things no one was meant to understand. But the last mission, that mission had shaken me to my core. It left me disillusioned, questioning everything I had once believed was important. I swore I would never go back, never step foot in that dark world again. And I had kept that promise for 5 years. So when the phone rang with Wells' name on the caller ID, my first instinct was to hang up. I didn't owe him anything anymore. But as I stared at the screen, the weight of curiosity gnawed at me. Curiosity, always a dangerous thing, I answered. Sam, Wells said, his voice steady but carrying the weight of something unsaid. We need you. You're the only one qualified to handle this. One last mission, then you're done. I swear. I gritted my teeth. I could feel my resolve starting to crack. I don't want any part of this anymore, Wells. I understand, but you're the only one who can do this. You'll walk away afterward. I promise. He paused for a moment, then added, Sam, we're dealing with something we don't fully understand. I need you. I stood there, the phone pressed to my ear, my mind running through every moment I had left behind. Could I really refuse? The curiosity, the need to understand, to know what was out there beyond the confines of this world pulled at me. I thought about my past, the long hours, the secrets, the things I couldn't unsee. Fine, I said, my voice tight with resignation. I'll do it, but this is the last time, Wells. The line went quiet for a moment before Wells spoke again. I'll see you soon. It had been a long time since I had seen the inside of a military facility. The cold, sterile walls of Area 51 felt alien now, almost suffocating. The hum of machinery, the distant clanging of doors opening and closing, the feeling of being watched. It all came flooding back as I walked through the familiar corridors. But now there was a sense of dread, a weight in the air that I couldn't shake. Wells met me in one of the hangars, his figure standing against the steel table cluttered with files and monitors. He looked older, the years of stress etched into his face. His eyes flickered when they met mine, as if he were silently assessing the changes time had wrought on me. Good to see you, Sam, he said, his tone almost sincere, but the tension in his voice betrayed him. I gave him a curt nod. Let's skip the pleasantries. What am I here for? He straightened up, motioning for me to follow him. We walked down the narrow hallway, past the security clearances and retinal scans that felt more like a reminder of how far I had fallen from the world of secrets I once thrived in. We acquired something unusual about a year ago, Wells began, his voice dropping to a low murmur. A team stumbled upon it during an excavation in the Nevada desert. They were working on something else when they found it, buried deep in the sand. It's not like anything we've ever seen before. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? We brought it here for study, of course. But the thing is, it's not just some artifact. Every 18 hours it opens, and it doesn't open to anywhere on this earth. I almost laughed, but the look in Wells' eyes stopped me. He was serious, and the edge of fear I saw there sent a chill down my spine. What do you mean, not on this earth? He met my gaze, and I could swear I saw a flash of something darker. You'll see for yourself. We arrived at a heavy steel door, guarded by 2 armed soldiers. Wells nodded to them, and they stepped aside to let us through. Inside was a smaller room, dimly lit, with only one object standing in the center. It looked ancient, like something out of a museum. A stone-like gate, nearly 10 feet high, with intricate carvings that seemed to shimmer faintly under the light. I took a step closer, inspecting it. The markings along the frame felt oddly familiar, but I couldn't place them. What is this? It's a gate, Wells replied simply, his voice tense. It opens, Sam, but not to anywhere on Earth. Every 18 hours it opens, and what's on the other side, well, you're going to see it for yourself. My stomach twisted. I glanced at the gate again, the faint hum growing louder. The air in the room felt charged, as if the very space around us was alive. When does it open? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. In about 20 minutes, Wells replied, glancing at his watch. It's predictable, almost like clockwork. That's how we know it's not just some random anomaly. It opens and something comes through, or at least it seems that way. I studied the gate more closely, my mind racing. The texture was rough, weathered, almost as if it had been exposed to centuries of harsh elements. But there was something else, something that made my skin prickle with unease. Is it safe? I asked, despite myself. We've done all the tests we can from this side, Wells said, his voice lowering. But Sam, we need someone to step through. You're the one to do it. The next few minutes felt like an eternity. The room filled with an almost palpable tension, the air thick with anticipation. The gate flickered, and for a moment the light inside it wavered, like a window opening up to another world. I stood there, frozen, watching the surreal landscape take form on the other side. Lush greenery stretched out before me. Towering trees with deep blue leaves, ferns the size of a small car, their massive fronds swaying in a breeze I couldn't feel. The atmosphere looked hazy, shimmering like a mirage, but the more I looked, the more real it seemed. My pulse quickened, my heart pounding in my chest. This is live? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Wells nodded, his face pale. Every 18 hours like clockwork. We don't know where it leads. We don't know what's on the other side. But we need you to go through, Sam. We need information. We need to understand what this thing is. I felt the familiar pull of curiosity, a force stronger than any caution or fear. But as I stared into the alien landscape, the question burned in my mind. Was I truly ready for what I might find on the other side? I took a deep breath and stepped closer to the gate. My heart raced, a mix of dread and excitement surging through me. The faint hum of the gate seemed to pulse in sync with my heartbeat, as if it were alive. The air around me felt electric, like the moment before a thunderstorm, thick with potential energy. For a moment, I stood there, staring at the shimmering world beyond, my mind trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The landscape stretched out impossibly far, lush and alien, with massive trees that towered over me, their leaves an unnatural shade of deep blue. The ground beneath them was covered in a thick layer of plants and vines that seemed almost sentient, reaching out with a strange hypnotic sway. There was something profoundly unsettling about it all, something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Wells stood beside me, his face taut with anticipation. This is what you're here for, Sam. Go through, see what you can find. It's our only chance at understanding what's happening. I nodded, despite the unease tightening in my chest. I couldn't back out now, not after everything. The curiosity that had driven me to this point was overwhelming. I needed answers. I looked back at Wells one last time, searching his eyes for some reassurance, but all I saw was fear of the unknown, fear of what might happen next. He must have seen the doubt in my eyes because he gave me a reassuring nod, though it was weak and unconvincing. I stepped forward, my boots tapping softly on the cold floor of the hangar, then out into the glowing portal. The moment my body crossed the threshold, a shock of cold washed over me. The air tasted different, thicker, heavier. It had a metallic quality, like I was breathing in the very essence of the alien world itself. My vision blurred for a moment, and I staggered, trying to adjust to the overwhelming newness of it all. As I regained my footing, I took in my surroundings. The ground was soft and spongy, damp with moisture I couldn't explain. It was like stepping into a jungle, but one that was entirely unfamiliar, foreign in a way that felt wrong. The trees above me were massive, their trunks thick and twisted, with bark that seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light. The leaves, they were huge, impossibly large, with veins running through them like natural circuitry. I couldn't see the sky. Instead, the atmosphere had an eerie, golden glow to it, as if the very air itself was lit from within. The light was diffused, gentle, but it didn't come from the sun, or any sun I could recognize. It felt as if the environment itself was charged with a soft, glowing energy. The ground beneath my feet was uneven, covered with tangled vines and thick alien ferns that seemed to move ever so slightly as if they were aware of my presence. A strange rustling echoed in the distance, but when I turned to look, the source of the sound was gone. The world felt alive. It felt watching. I took a cautious step forward, my boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. Every sound, every movement seemed amplified in the silence of this alien place. I reached for the device strapped to my wrist, the temporal anchor. The screen flickered to life, displaying a countdown, ticking down the minutes, reminding me that I was here on borrowed time. The ground around me felt different. Each step felt heavier, the air pressing down on me, thick with a strange energy that seemed to warp the very fabric of time. I glanced up, looking for something, anything, that could explain the feeling in the pit of my stomach. A small, insect-like creature darted past me, its legs spindly and long, its body a mix of iridescent colors that shifted as it moved. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. I reached out instinctively, but it scurried into the thick underbrush before I could touch it. The sight of it left me unsettled. I had expected life here to be different, more mechanical perhaps, or even lifeless. But this was a world teeming with life, too much life. I pulled the biosync lenses from my bag and fitted them over my eyes. The world around me sharpened immediately, the colors and textures becoming more vivid, but also more alien. The edges of my vision blurred, distorting everything into strange shapes, but I could see far beyond what was previously visible. My senses heightened, every rustle in the leaves, every shift in the air felt like an explosion in my mind. As I continued to walk, I began to notice things, patterns carved into the bark of the trees. They weren't random, they were too deliberate, too intricate. I reached out, running my fingers over the markings. They were cold to the touch, like stone, not wood. The feeling that I wasn't alone here grew stronger. I moved cautiously, my heart thudding in my chest. Every instinct I had screamed at me to turn back, to go through the gate, but the curiosity, the pull of the unknown, kept me moving forward. The sounds of distant creatures grew louder. Strange bird-like calls echoed through the forest, but I didn't see any creatures that could make the noises. My mind raced. Was it possible that whatever intelligence resided here could influence my senses, playing tricks on me? Or was it something more sinister, lurking just out of sight? I continued onward, deeper into the unknown. The trees became more twisted, their branches curving in unnatural ways, like arms reaching toward me. The thick undergrowth grew denser, making it harder to move through. My boots sunk further into the spongy ground, each step requiring more effort than the last. The glow in the air shifted, and I could sense the time slipping away. Every moment felt stretched out, like the very fabric of reality was warping around me. I stopped to take a breath, my pulse quickening. There was something more to this place, something alive. My senses screamed that I wasn't just walking through a strange world. I was being watched, not just by the creatures, but by the land itself. The realization sent a shiver down my spine. The air felt heavy now, as though it was pressing against me. I looked at the anchor device on my wrist, noting that the time was moving differently here. The readings were fluctuating wildly. I felt disoriented. Had I been walking in circles, or was this world bending time itself? I reached the edge of a small clearing and froze. My eyes locked on a faint outline of something strange, footprints, clear in the soft soil. They weren't human. They were too elongated, the toes sharp and unnatural. As I crouched down to examine them, a chill ran through me. Someone or something had been here before. I stood up slowly, my heart racing. I couldn't stay here much longer. My mind was already starting to blur the edges of reality, the eerie sense of being watched overwhelming me. I had to return to the gate. But as I turned to retrace my steps, a sudden rustling in the bushes made me freeze. Something was moving, something large, just out of sight. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I wasn't alone, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to face whatever was watching me. The air around me grew still, unnervingly so, as I stood frozen in the middle of the clearing. The rustling in the underbrush had stopped, but the feeling of being watched, the sensation of something lurking just beyond the reach of my senses, intensified. My heart thudded in my chest, its rhythm irregular, as if it too sensed the oppressive presence of the world around me. The footprints were still fresh in the damp soil, but I didn't dare linger. I quickly glanced around, my biosync lenses sharpening my vision, revealing every hidden detail in the dense foliage. The trees were closing in, their twisted branches hanging low like skeletal arms stretching out to snatch me. I couldn't tell if the forest itself was moving or if it was my mind playing tricks, but every step I took felt slower, more labored, as if the very earth beneath me was resisting my passage. I glanced at the temporal anchor device strapped tightly to my wrist. The countdown was still ticking, but it had slowed down in a way that unsettled me. The readings were fluctuating, like time was slipping out of sync, stretching in unnatural ways. The device's faint hum was the only sound that cut through the oppressive silence, but even that seemed distant, muffled by the strange forces at play here. I pushed forward, determined to leave the clearing to get back to the gate, but as I stepped toward the edge of the clearing, the sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, echoed through the underbrush. My breath caught in my throat. The movement was slow, calculated. I wasn't imagining it this time. Someone or something was coming closer. I pivoted quickly, my boots crunching softly on the damp ground, and turned to face the direction from which the sounds were emanating. The underbrush parted slightly, and I glimpsed a dark figure just beyond the trees. It was tall, humanoid, but distorted in ways that made my mind rebel at the sight. It was as though the figure's proportions weren't quite right, the limbs too long, the skin stretched too thin. And its eyes, those eyes were enormous, black and empty, hollow sockets that seemed to devour the light around them. I stood frozen, unable to tear my eyes away from the creature. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. There was no mistaking it. This was no animal. It wasn't even fully human. It had once been human, I thought, but whatever it had become, it was no longer recognizable. The figure didn't move, but its gaze, those black, void-like eyes, locked onto mine with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I could feel its presence, its awareness of me, like a predator watching its prey. I took a step back, my breath shallow, my chest tightening with panic. I needed to run, needed to escape, but my legs felt like lead. The creature was still watching me, unmoving, almost. Waiting. It tilted its head slightly, an unsettling motion that made the blood in my veins freeze. I took another cautious step backward, hoping it wouldn't follow, but the creature remained still, its unnerving gaze never leaving mine. I felt the air grow colder, a chill creeping into my bones as if the world around me was rejecting my presence. A faint whispering began to echo through the trees. It was low at first, distant, but then it grew louder, more distinct. The whispers sounded familiar, like fragments of my own thoughts, like voices I had heard before, faint, like memories slipping away just beyond reach. I couldn't make out the words, but the sound, the tone was unnerving. It was as though someone was speaking directly to me, inside my head. I had to get away. I couldn't stay here any longer. But the moment I turned to flee, the creature stepped forward, its long, spindly limbs moving in unnatural grace. My pulse spiked, panic surging through me. I whipped around and bolted, my legs burning as I pushed through the thick underbrush, the sound of branches snapping and leaves rustling behind me. But I didn't dare look back. I couldn't. The whispers grew louder, the voices in my head growing more insistent, more demanding. The ground beneath me shifted, and I stumbled, barely catching myself before falling face first into the mud. I pushed myself up, fear coursing through my veins, and continued running. But my mind was a mess, the whispers clouding my thoughts, the vision of that creature haunting me. I felt its eyes on me, felt it pursuing me, though I dared not look behind. Finally, the underbrush thinned out, and I found myself at the edge of a small cliff, looking down into a jagged ravine. The gate was on the other side, just a short distance away, but I couldn't see it clearly through the dense trees. My heart thudded in my chest, and my breath came in sharp, uneven gasps. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't sure I could make it back. The whispers were louder now, clear enough to make out a few words. "You can't escape," they murmured, voices overlapping in a chaotic, maddening chorus. "You're already one of us." I stopped in my tracks, the words sinking in. The creature had said nothing, yet the whispers, those voices from the shadows, had already branded me, claiming me as part of this world. I had to make it back to the gate. I couldn't let this place claim me, not like it had claimed them. I turned toward the ravine, my heart pounding, adrenaline pushing me forward. I sprinted towards the edge, my legs trembling beneath me. But just as I reached it, I stumbled again, falling to my knees as the ground beneath me gave way slightly, the earth crumbling at my feet. I forced myself to my feet, my mind frantically searching for a way to escape. The gate had to be close, just beyond the trees. But the longer I stayed here, the more I could feel the pull of the world around me, the weight of its presence growing stronger. The whispers continued, seeping into my mind, making me doubt everything I knew. I glanced down at the temporal anchor device on my wrist. The countdown was dangerously low, the seconds ticking away faster than I could count. If I didn't get back soon, I might not have a way out. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and made my way back toward the trees, ignoring the whispers and the sense of doom that loomed over me. The gate was closed, just beyond the next cluster of twisted trees. I could make it. But I wasn't alone anymore. The creature was still there, lurking in the shadows, its gaze burning through the darkness. And this time, it wasn't watching me from a distance. It was coming closer. I could feel it. The air had shifted again, heavier now, as if the very atmosphere of this world was thickening around me, pressing in from all sides. The creature, whatever it was closer now. I could hear its movements in the underbrush, a quiet, unnatural rustling that didn't belong to anything natural. My heart raced in my chest, and each step I took felt like I was wading through thick, suffocating mud. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. The whispers were relentless, filling my mind with a cacophony of voices that overlapped in an unnerving chorus. Some of the voices were familiar, like fragments of memories, things I had buried deep within myself. Others were strange, alien, harsh in tone, like they were coming from somewhere beyond my understanding. It was as if the very world itself was speaking to me, trying to claim me, trying to erase who I was. I fought against the pull, pushing forward, but my body felt sluggish, slow. Each breath I took felt harder than the last. The ground beneath me seemed to shift with every step, like the landscape itself was alive, bending and warping as I moved. The trees, those twisted, gnarled things, leaned toward me, their branches stretching like skeletal fingers, brushing against my skin as I passed. The air was thick with moisture, clinging to my clothes, making each movement more difficult than the last. And still, the creature followed. I could feel its presence stalking me from behind, its eyes locked on me, burning into my back with an intensity that was almost suffocating. I didn't dare look back. I knew that if I did, I might lose the courage to keep moving. The gate had to be closed now. I had to get there. The thought of the gate was the only thing keeping me grounded, the only thing pulling me forward in this alien world. I could already see it in my mind. The shimmering portal, my only escape, my only chance to return to whatever version of reality I could salvage. But as I pushed forward, something caught my eye. A flash of movement to my left, a figure, standing at the edge of the trees. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. The figure was humanoid, tall and pale, with eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. For a moment, I thought it was one of the creatures, but no, this one was different. It was standing still, watching me, its face expressionless, its gaze unwavering. The figure stepped forward, moving with an eerie, deliberate slowness. I took a step back, my body instinctively pulling away. The whispers in my mind grew louder, and the creature behind me stirred, its movements quickening. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice trembling despite my attempt to sound strong. But the figure didn't respond. It just continued to move forward, its long, spindly limbs gliding over the ground like it was floating. I took another step back, my eyes darting to the right where the gate should have been, but there was nothing, just more trees, more twisted trunks, and thick vines that seemed to close in on me. My mind was racing. I had to get back. I had to. The figure reached out, its hand extending toward me, its fingers long and thin, with skin that shimmered in the dim light. I stumbled backward, my pulse thundering in my ears. The creature behind me was moving faster now, closing in on me, its footsteps growing louder, more frantic. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the earth trembling like it was alive. I spun around, my feet slipping on the damp ground, and I bolted in the opposite direction, or away from the figure and the creature that was relentlessly pursuing me. My breath came in ragged gasps as I pushed through the thick undergrowth, the vines tearing at my clothes, the ferns brushing against my face, stinging my skin. I didn't dare stop, didn't dare look back. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to run. The gate had to be closed now. The ground was sloping downward, and I could see the faintest hint of light up ahead, a shimmering glow, the familiar pulse of the portal, calling me, pulling me forward. I pushed my legs harder, my body aching with every movement, but I couldn't stop. I had to get there. Then the whispers returned, louder this time, overwhelming me, filling my head with words I couldn't understand, phrases that felt like they were coming from every direction. "You can't escape," they hissed. "You belong here." I staggered, the weight of the voices pressing down on me. I shook my head, trying to block them out, but they wouldn't stop. They clawed at my mind, tearing at the very fabric of my sanity. I forced myself to focus, to ignore the chaos in my head. The gate was right in front of me, just a few more steps. I reached for it, my hand outstretched, but as I did, I heard something behind me. A loud, unnatural screech, a sound like tearing metal, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy, quick footsteps. The creature was almost upon me. I didn't have time to think. I lunged forward, throwing myself at the gate, my hand touching the cool surface of the portal. The world around me seemed to shift, the landscape blurring as the light from the gate grew brighter, swallowing everything in its path. I could feel the pull of the portal, tugging at my body, drawing me in. Just as I felt myself being pulled through, a hand, cold and rough, grabbed my ankle, yanking me backward. I screamed, reaching out, my fingers slipping against the edge of the gate. But the hand tightened its grip, dragging me away from the light, pulling me back into the darkness of the alien world. I kicked, struggled, but the grip was relentless. The last thing I saw before everything went black was the gate, flickering out of existence, leaving me alone in the depths of the alien landscape, with nothing but the whispers and the cold, watching eyes of the creatures that had already claimed this world as their own. The cold air hit me like a slap in the face, sending a jolt of panic through my system. My chest heaved with the effort to breathe, but the atmosphere felt thick, almost suffocating, as if it was pushing back against me. I was no longer in the clearing, no longer near the gate. My body slammed against the ground, the damp earth cool against my skin. My heart raced, and every muscle screamed in protest as I struggled to regain my bearings. I pushed myself to my knees, my fingers digging into the soft, wet soil as I lifted my head. The world around me was dim, the golden glow of the alien sky now tinged with an ominous red, as if the sun itself was fading away. I could feel it. This place, this world, it was wrong. Every nerve in my body screamed that I was no longer where I belonged. My mind was reeling, struggling to process what had just happened. The gate. I had been so close, but now it was gone. I glanced around, disoriented. There were no signs of the portal, no glowing light, no shimmering surface, nothing. Just the dark, twisted forest around me, its trees now looming even larger, their branches like claws reaching down from the sky. The underbrush was dense, thick with vines and overgrown ferns, and every direction seemed to lead deeper into this unsettling world. I staggered to my feet, my legs unsteady beneath me. My hand instinctively went to the temporal anchor strapped to my wrist. The screen flickered to life, displaying the countdown, but it was blinking erratically, the numbers jumping in a way that didn't make sense. The time, it seemed, had no meaning here. It was as though this world existed outside of time itself, warping and twisting around my presence. The anchor wasn't working properly, and neither was my mind. I took a shaky breath, forcing myself to move. Every step felt heavier, as if the ground itself was pushing back against me. I wasn't sure if it was the effect of the alien atmosphere or something deeper, but my senses were starting to warp. The whispers returned, louder now, swirling around my head like 1,000 voices speaking all at once. Some of the words were familiar, fragments of memories, echoes of things long buried in my mind. Others were alien, a language I couldn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable, hostile, mocking, invasive. "You're trapped," they hissed. "You will never leave." I gritted my teeth, trying to block them out, but the sound of those voices clung to me, crawling under my skin. I felt like I was being drawn into the very fabric of this world, becoming part of it. The whispers weren't just words. They were like threads, pulling at my thoughts, warping my sense of reality. I pushed on, moving deeper into the forest, even though I knew it was futile. The way forward felt endless, the trees closing in around me like an impenetrable wall. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of decay and something else, something metallic, almost sweet. It made my stomach churn, but I couldn't stop. I had to keep moving. I stumbled across a small clearing, a faint light filtering through the thick canopy above. In the center of the clearing was a large stone structure, almost like a monument. It was weathered and ancient, covered in strange, intricate carvings that resembled the symbols I had seen on the gate. The same markings, the same eerie patterns, etched into the surface of the stone like a message written by a forgotten hand. I approached cautiously, my fingers trailing over the rough surface of the stone. It was cold, too cold for something that had been exposed to the elements for who knows how long. The carvings glowed faintly in the dim light, their lines shifting and changing as if they were alive. I could feel the hum of something beneath the surface, a low, vibrating energy that seemed to pulse through the stone. The whispers were growing louder, more insistent now. "It's waiting," they said. "It knows you're here." I stepped back, suddenly aware of the oppressive presence around me. I wasn't alone. I hadn't been alone since I first set foot in this place. The creature, the one that had been following me, had it been waiting here all along? Or was it something else? Something worse? The hair on the back of my neck stood up as I turned, scanning the edges of the clearing for any sign of movement. And then I saw it. A figure crouched low in the shadows at the edge of the clearing. It was humanoid, but twisted. Its form distorted, limbs unnaturally elongated. Its eyes gleamed with an unsettling light, and it seemed to be watching me, waiting for something. My blood ran cold as I realized that it was not alone. I could see others, more figures, lurking just out of sight, hidden in the darkness of the forest. I didn't wait to find out what they wanted. Fear surged through me like wildfire. I turned and ran, my heart pounding in my chest as I sprinted away from the clearing, away from the stone monument, away from whatever had been waiting for me there. I had no idea where I was going. The forest seemed endless, the trees and vines closing in on me like they were alive, like they were trying to trap me. The whispers were louder now, so loud that they drowned out everything else, filling my mind with a cacophony of voices. You can't escape. You won't survive. You belong here. I stumbled, nearly falling as the ground shifted beneath my feet, and then I saw it. A flash of light, faint but undeniable. The gate. It was still there, flickering in and out of existence just ahead of me. My heart leaped in my chest. There was still hope. There was still a way out. But as I made my way toward it, the earth seemed to tremble beneath me. The ground cracked open, deep fissures appearing, as though the world itself was rejecting me, trying to pull me back into the depths of its dark embrace. The gate was flickering faster now, its light growing dimmer with each passing second. I reached the gate, my fingers outstretched, and for a moment, I thought I could make it, thought I could return to the world I knew. But as I touched the surface of the gate, I felt a sharp pull, like something was yanking me back. I gasped, my breath catching in my throat, but it was too late. The gate began to close, its light dimming until it was nothing but a faint glow in the distance. I was trapped again, alone in this alien world, with only the whispers and the dark creatures watching from the shadows. I tried to move, to push through the pain, but the world was closing in on me. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling my mind with thoughts I couldn't control. "You will never escape," they hissed. "This is your fate." And then I realized the terrible truth. This world had claimed me, and there would be no escape. I was lost forever. Time seemed to stretch and warp, losing all sense of meaning as I stood there in the aftermath of my failed attempt to return to the gate. The air around me felt thick and suffocating, as if it were made of something heavier than oxygen, pressing down on my chest, constricting my every breath. The oppressive silence of the forest closed in around me, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and distant, untraceable noises that made my skin crawl. I had failed. The gate had flickered out just as my fingers brushed against it, and now in this foreign, twisted world, I was truly alone. There was no sign of the strange creatures that had been watching me, no more shadowy figures lurking in the edges of my vision. but I could feel their presence, like a weight pressing on my back. They were still here, somewhere, just waiting for me to make the wrong move. I staggered backward, taking a few unsteady steps into the dense undergrowth. The vines seemed to reach out toward me as I moved, their tendrils curling like fingers, brushing against my skin with an unsettling tenderness. The world around me was alive, aware, and it was as if the very fabric of this place had a mind of its own, a consciousness that was slowly but surely weaving me into its dark tapestry. The whispers in my mind had grown quieter, but they hadn't stopped. They circled my thoughts like vultures, picking at the edges of my sanity. "You belong here," they murmured. "You'll never leave. The world has claimed you." I shook my head, trying to block out the voices, but it was futile. It was as if this place was inside me, sinking into the deepest parts of my mind, changing me from the inside out. I reached for the temporal anchor on my wrist, but the device was flickering erratically now, the display unreadable, distorted by the strange energies of the world around me. The connection to Earth was slipping away, and I couldn't stop it. I had to keep moving. I couldn't stay here, not with the dark weight of the world pressing on my chest, not with the strange forces pulling at my very thoughts. There had to be an answer, a way out. But where? How? The gate was gone. The only thing left was this alien world, its twisted trees and sentient foliage and the constant, overwhelming sense of being watched. I started walking, my legs heavy, each step dragging me further into the unknown. The forest seemed to stretch on endlessly, the trees becoming denser, more gnarled, as if they were trying to trap me within their reach. Every few steps, I could feel the ground shift beneath me, the earth subtly rearranging itself, as if this place was alive, breathing, responding to my presence. The air around me began to grow colder, a sharp chill creeping through my clothes and biting at my skin. I shivered involuntarily, the strange temperature of this world working its way under my skin, making me feel like an intruder, an outsider. I glanced up at the sky, or what passed for it, its golden hue now tinged with shades of red and violet, the clouds swirling in strange, unnatural patterns. There was no sun, no familiar point of reference to gauge the time. It was as though the entire world was suspended in a perpetual twilight, trapped in a moment that never ended. I stumbled through the forest, every step feeling heavier, my breath growing shallow as though the world itself was resisting me. The whispering voices had returned, their words now clearer, more distinct. "They are coming for you," they hissed. "You can't hide from them. You can't escape." I looked around wildly, my eyes darting between the trees, expecting to see the twisted, half-human creatures watching me again. But there was nothing, just the thick undergrowth, the creeping vines, and the oppressive silence. And then, in the distance, I saw it, a flicker of light. It was faint, barely noticeable at first, but it pulsed like a heartbeat, distant yet undeniable. The glow seemed to shimmer against the dark backdrop of the forest, like a beacon calling me forward. My heart leaped in my chest, hope igniting in the pit of my stomach. It could be the gate, or something close to it. Something that could get me out of here. I moved toward the light, my steps quicker now, driven by the desperate need to find something, anything, that could lead me back to the world I knew. The whispers in my mind grew louder, the voices turning frantic, trying to pull me back. "It's a trap," they warned. "You'll never make it. It's not what you think." I shook my head, trying to push the voices out of my mind, but they wouldn't stop. They swirled around me, louder now, like a chorus of mocking voices echoing through the trees. I didn't care anymore. I needed to find the light. I had to. The light grew brighter as I moved closer, now blindingly bright, cutting through the darkness like a knife. The trees parted ahead, revealing a small clearing where the light was coming from. At the center of the clearing was a stone structure, large and ancient, its surface covered with the same strange markings I had seen on the gate. But this wasn't the gate. This was something else, something older. The stone structure seemed to hum with a strange energy, a vibration that I could feel deep in my bones. It was as if it were alive, as if it were calling me, beckoning me to come closer. The air around it shimmered with an otherworldly glow, distorting the space around it like heat rising from pavement on a hot day. I stepped forward cautiously, my eyes locked on the structure, but something made me hesitate. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of the world pressing in on me. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see the twisted figures lurking in the shadows, watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake. But there was nothing. The forest around me had gone silent, almost expectantly so. Even the whispers in my mind had ceased, leaving only the hum of the structure and the distant rustling of the trees. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for me to make my move. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the surface of the stone. The moment I made contact, the energy surged through me, sending a shockwave of warmth and cold spiraling through my body. The markings on the stone began to glow brighter, and for a brief moment, the world around me seemed to shift. The air became heavier, thicker, and the world around me seemed to bend, warping into something unrecognizable. My mind screamed at me to pull away, to run, but it was too late. The structure had reacted to my touch, and now it was pulling me in. I could feel myself being drawn toward it, my body moving of its own accord, as if it had no say in the matter. The last thing I remember before everything went black was the glow of the stone, pulling me into its embrace, and the voices in my mind, now silent, as if they had finally found their peace. And then, I was gone. I woke with a sharp gasp, the world around me disorienting and unfamiliar. My body felt heavy, as though the air itself was pressing down on me, trying to keep me from moving. I blinked several times, trying to clear the fog in my mind, but nothing about this place made sense. I was no longer in the forest, at least not in the same place I had been. This was different. The light was dim, casting long shadows across the ground, and the atmosphere felt even heavier than before. It wasn't just oppressive, it was alive, breathing around me, like I had stepped into a space that wasn't meant for human beings. My head throbbed as I pushed myself to my feet, dizziness clouding my vision. The stone structure I had touched still loomed ahead, but it was no longer glowing. In fact, it seemed to be watching me, its jagged surface shifting imperceptibly as though it had a presence of its own. The glow that had enveloped it was gone, replaced by an eerie, unnatural stillness. Everything around me was still, too still, and the silence felt suffocating, as though I were caught in a moment of suspended time. I took a few tentative steps forward, each movement slow and deliberate. The ground beneath me was soft, spongy, like I was walking on a thick, damp carpet of moss. The air had a metallic taste, sharp and cold, as if the very atmosphere was charged with something unnatural. The whispering voices had returned, but they were faint, distant, as though they were coming from a far-off place, just out of reach. They murmured in a language I didn't understand, but their tone was unmistakably mocking. "You cannot escape," the whispers echoed in my mind. "You belong to this world now." I shuddered at the thought, the reality of it sinking in. I did belong here now, didn't I? This world had already claimed me. The thought of returning to Earth, of stepping through the gate again, seemed impossible. The very idea of it felt alien, like a distant memory I could no longer reach. It was like the world I had known had been erased, and all that remained was this place, with its oppressive atmosphere and strange, twisted life forms. But I couldn't give in. Not yet. I had to keep moving, keep searching for a way out, even if I wasn't sure there was one. The whispers, the creatures, whatever force was behind this, was trying to pull me deeper into this reality. I couldn't let them win. I forced my legs to carry me forward, each step more labored than the last. The clearing around the stone structure was vast, and it seemed to stretch on forever. But as I moved further into the space, I noticed something strange, something different. At the edge of the clearing, partially obscured by thick vines and ferns, I saw a figure. It was human, or at least it looked human at first glance. A man standing still, facing away from me. His posture was rigid, unnatural. The air around him seemed to shimmer like he was a part of the environment, as if the very space around him had warped to fit him. His body was gaunt, his skin pale, almost translucent, and his limbs were unnaturally long, too long for any human. His head was tilted slightly, as though he were listening to something, waiting for something. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to stay away, to turn around and run. But my feet didn't obey. They carried me toward him slowly, hesitantly, as though I were being pulled by some unseen force. The closer I got, the more I could feel the weight of the air around me, pressing down on me, making it harder to breathe, to move. The figure didn't acknowledge me. He remained still, his head tilted as though waiting for something or someone to approach. And then, as I drew closer, I saw it. The reason his presence was so unsettling, his back was covered in markings, symbols just like the ones I had seen before. The same strange alien language that had been carved into the gate, into the stone structures. The symbols on his skin seemed to shimmer in the dim light, glowing faintly, almost as if they were alive. I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice shaking. The figure didn't respond. He remained motionless, his expression vacant, his eyes hidden beneath the shadows of his hair. I reached out instinctively, my fingers brushing the air in front of him. The moment I did, the atmosphere around us seemed to change. The air grew heavier, denser, like something had shifted in the world around me. The figure's head snapped up suddenly, his eyes, glowing with an unnatural, sickly light, locking onto mine. I stumbled back, a sharp gasp escaping my lips. His eyes weren't just glowing, they were empty. Hollow, dark pits that seemed to pierce straight through me, seeing into the deepest parts of my mind. I felt exposed, like he was looking into the very essence of who I was, reading my thoughts, my fears, my past. "You're not supposed to be here," the figure spoke, his voice low and hollow, as if it were coming from the very earth beneath us. "This world is not yours. You are a stranger." His words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My mind was reeling, trying to process the words, the meaning behind them. Was he human? Or had he become something else? Something other? Had he been trapped here like me? The figure took a step toward me, and I instinctively took a step back, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. His body was unnaturally thin, his skin stretched tight over his bones, almost like a shell. The markings on his back seemed to pulse with each movement, as if the symbols themselves were breathing. "You are a part of this now," he continued, his voice carrying an eerie calmness. "There is no escape. The world has claimed you, just as it has claimed all who have come before." I shook my head, unable to process the full weight of his words. "No," I managed to whisper. I can't stay here. I won't stay here." The figure's lips curled into a faint, hollow smile. "You don't have a choice." His words echoed in my mind as he stepped back, disappearing into the shadows of the forest, leaving me standing in the clearing, alone. The silence returned, but it was different now. He had planted a seed of doubt in my mind, a terrifying realization that I was trapped, caught in a cycle I couldn't escape from. I took a step forward, my legs trembling beneath me. The whispers returned, louder now, more urgent, their voices blending into a single, unified command. "You belong here. You will never leave." But as I stood in the clearing, the realization hit me harder than ever before. I was no longer just an explorer. I had become a part of this world, its twisted, broken existence, and there was no way out. The world had changed around me. It had shifted in ways I couldn't understand, and every step I took in this alien landscape felt like I was sinking deeper into the unknown, further from any sense of familiarity. The whispers were constant now, their presence like a heavy weight on my shoulders, never leaving, never relenting. Each word, each phrase they murmured made me feel more disconnected from the world I had once known, as though I were slipping further into madness. "You are nothing here," the whispers coiled in my mind. "You are just another lost soul, another traveler who never made it back." I wanted to scream, to yell at them to stop, but the words stuck in my throat, trapped by an overwhelming sense of helplessness. I couldn't escape. I had tried, but this world, this place, it didn't want me to leave. The gate had been my chance, my last hope, and it was gone now. The stone structure I had touched, the very thing that had pulled me in, it had trapped me here, in this twisted version of reality. I stumbled through the forest, my legs shaking with exhaustion, every step a struggle. The trees above me seemed to stretch endlessly, their gnarled branches bending down to trap me in their shadows. The air was thick with the metallic scent of decay, the ground underfoot soft and spongy, as though it had been soaked with something far worse than rain. My breath came in shallow gasps, each inhale a desperate attempt to fight off the dizziness that clouded my thoughts. I had no plan. I had no direction. My only impulse now was to move, to keep moving, hoping against hope that somehow I would find something that would lead me back, something that would break this endless cycle. But as I looked around, I knew in my heart that there was no escape. The forest was closing in on me. The walls of reality were crumbling, and I was being swallowed whole by the very world that had once been nothing more than a mystery. Suddenly, a movement caught my eye. I froze. For a moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath, as if the world itself had stopped moving. There in the distance, I saw the figure again, the one I had encountered earlier, standing motionless at the edge of my vision. He had returned. This time, however, he wasn't alone. There were others with him, figures cloaked in shadows, their forms indistinct but unmistakably humanoid. They were watching me, their eyes gleaming with that same eerie, empty glow I had seen before. The figures seemed to blend with the darkness of the forest, their presence more felt than seen. I could hear the soft whisper of their movements, the scraping of something hard against the earth, like claws or fingers trailing through the leaves. I took a step back, my heart racing, my instincts screaming at me to run. But where would I go? There was no escape. I had already tried that, and the world itself had rejected me. Figures moved toward me, their steps deliberate, slow, as though they were savoring each moment. Their eyes locked onto mine, and the whispers in my head grew louder, more insistent, more urgent. The voices were no longer just whispers. They were commands now, words I couldn't ignore, pulling at the very core of my being. "You belong here, traveler?" One of them said, the voice soft but firm. It was the same voice from before, the one I had heard in my mind, the one that had twisted everything I had once believed. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. "I'm not one of you," I croaked, my voice barely audible in the suffocating silence of the forest. The figure smiled, a thin, hollow smile that seemed to stretch too far, revealing teeth that were far too sharp, too jagged. "You are. You just don't know it yet." The others moved closer, their presence growing heavier with each passing second, their movements like shadows gliding between the trees. Their bodies seemed to blur, indistinct, as if they were more part of the forest than creatures that had once been human. Their forms shifted in and out of focus, their outlines warping like reflections in disturbed water. "Why?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why are you doing this?" The figure stepped closer, and I could see his face more clearly now. He was gaunt, with hollowed cheeks and eyes that seemed to burn with an inner fire. His skin was as pale as death itself, and his lips twisted into that same unnatural grin. "Because," he said, "we are the guardians of this world. We were chosen. And you." He paused, his smile widening. "You're just another lost soul, another one who thought they could escape. But the world does not let go, it claims." I could feel the truth of his words sinking in, like ice crawling through my veins. This place, this world, wasn't just a physical location. It was a force, a presence, a living entity that fed on the lost, the broken. And it was feeding on me now, slowly and inexorably, pulling me deeper into its grasp. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening. "You will never return. You will never escape." I stumbled backward, but my legs betrayed me, and I fell to my knees in the damp earth. The weight of the world pressed down on me, and for the first time I truly understood what it meant to be trapped. The figures stood around me now, their eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. They didn't move, didn't speak. They just watched. "I tried to leave," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the sound of my own panic. "I tried to go back." The figure knelt in front of me, his face inches from mine, his eyes burning with an otherworldly light. "And that is why you are here," he said softly, almost sympathetically. "You thought you could leave. You thought you could escape, but this world does not let go. It never lets go." I closed my eyes, my chest tightening as the truth of his words hit me full force. There was no way out. The gate wasn't just a doorway, it was a trap, a cycle, a prison for the lost. I had become just another part of it. The figure smiled again, and the world around me seemed to bend, to warp, as the darkness of the forest consumed everything. And in that moment, I knew the truth. This world had claimed me, and there was no escaping the grip it held on me. I was just another lost soul, another forgotten traveler, doomed to wander this alien world forever. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the journey into the unknown, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an epic story. Your thoughts mean the world to us, so be sure to leave a comment below and share your thoughts or theories about what happens next. Your support helps us keep creating more exciting content like this. and we truly appreciate every one of you. Until next time, stay curious and never stop exploring.